Hi, I'm Maddie Krupp, Director of Annual Giving at Wyoming Seminary.
Hi, I'm Liz Clemens-Cadle, Director of Alumni Programs at Wyoming Seminary, and welcome to another episode of
Sem Connects.
Virtually.
Today we will be chatting with two alumni that are both medical professionals in New York City.
We hope you enjoy.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes, thank you. First, let's introduce our panelists. With us today, we have Kelsey Grossman from the class of 2010 and Molly Turner from the class of 2014. Thank you guys again for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. So we know you both are working in the medical field in New York City, but can you give us a little more insight into exactly what you do and where you work?
Sure, I'll go first, I guess. So I'm a nurse at NYU Tisch Hospital. Work in the neonatal ICU. I've worked there for about 2 years since I graduated from college. So really, like, the patients I see are premature babies or really sick kids. And I work about like 3 or 4 days a week, and I really like it so far.
And Molly, have you been taken out of your daily sort of routine to help out with like overflow or anything like that?
Not as much. I feel like my unit is pretty lucky because our patient population is so specific. Mm-hmm. So we haven't been pulled as like some of the other nurses have, which has been really tough. The only thing that's changed for us is we do have a lot of pregnant moms who come in with COVID and they're really sick and they end up having like premature babies. So our census and our patient population has sort of risen because of that.
Why not? Yeah. Okay.
I'm an internal medicine resident at NYU School of Medicine, and so I work at both NYU Tisch Hospital, Bellevue Hospital, and the Manhattan VA. And because it's internal medicine, I think we end up dealing with the majority of all of these patients. And so we've definitely had some massive overhaul to our typical schedules. So right now I'm on a COVID block schedule, which just means that we switch every week where we are, what we're doing. And so I've mostly been at Bellevue Hospital between either the regular inpatient wards and the ICU. And it's actually kind of exciting. We've gotten a lot of help from other specialties, other residents that have been joining us from anywhere from radiology to ophthalmology. So it's nice to have support from other residents and to be working with a really broad array of people.
What do your shifts look like right now? So how many days a week are you working and how long is your shift typically?
So I stuck to the pretty similar schedule of working 3 or 4 days a week. I picked up a couple overtime shifts, and those shifts last 12 and a half to 13 hours. Sometimes longer depending on how your day goes, but never shorter.
Yeah, we've switched to a shift schedule. Before this, we didn't have shifts, and you kind of worked until you were done. But now, to make it easier to kind of fill in the gaps and to be more flexible about where we are, we've switched to 12-hour shifts, and I do 6 days a week, and then we have 1 week built into every 6 that's purely for it's called learning plan. So we do educational stuff in that week.
Okay. Do you have days off?
Yeah, we have 1 day off a week.
Oh, okay. Just 1 day though. Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah.
So what's the vibe in a hospital right now? What's a day like at the hospital right
now? I would say it's just a really tense atmosphere overall. In the pediatric floors, I feel like it's getting a little bit better. At first it was, also it's all you talk about. There's nothing else to talk about. Mm-hmm. Everyone comes into work and it's what's new? Nothing, just work. So I would say people get frustrated and upset with what's going on in the outside world. And it's hard not to bring that to work also. And just not really knowing what's going to happen or where you're going to go, if you're going to get pulled to another floor to help out, or if you're going to be overwhelmed with your patient load. So that's kind of scary when you're starting your shift off.
Yeah, I've actually been hearing a lot about what's going on in the world through my parents, just because I'm I'm in the hospital thinking about this all the time and that I'm not really listening to what else is going on. But typically what's really changed drastically for me is that you walk into the hospital now, and specifically at Bellevue, they take your temperature at the door. You have to be wearing a mask. You have to have your hospital ID because there's a very strict visitor policy. And then the day-to-day is a little bit monotonous because, typically you have a wide array of patients that you're seeing. And now it's really everyone I see has coronavirus pretty much. And so you do rounds with the attending and the rest of the team. You set a plan for the day, and then the rest of the day is, doing the plan that you set, but also since patients aren't allowed to have visitors, I've spent a lot of my day calling families. And so that's broken it up a little bit. And it's kind of nice to hear from the families, but it's also really difficult to be taking care of patients who have no outside support in the hospital.
Are the families they're not allowed to come into the hospital at all, correct?
I think it changes based on which hospital you're at, but
okay.
Initially it was no visitors whatsoever. Then there was an exception at one of the hospitals where if a patient was not doing well and we thought they may pass, you could get one visitor in. At the VA, actually, they said anyone with coronavirus couldn't have visitors because there's such a high risk of spread.
Mm-hmm.
So for the most part, there's really not been any visitors in the hospital.
And Molly, what about with the pregnant women? Can their spouses be with them?
Yeah, so a spouse is still allowed to come. Our unit's a little bit different because you can't really say no parents can see their newborn baby for however long this is gonna last. So parents, they're still allowed to come in. They have to take their temperature at the door, and then on our unit, we check their temperature in the beginning of the day and at the end of the day if they're staying at the bedside. Usually grandparents used to be able to come, or siblings and things like that. So it's really tough for these kids who are born and they're probably going to spend months in the hospital and never see grandparents, or their siblings can't see them. So that's tough. And it's just one parent at a bedside at a time. If the mom's still in the hospital, a baby, the dad can come too, and they can sit at the bedside together for 3 days. And then once their mom's discharged, then it's only one person at a time.
Okay, so because their babies are staying.
Yeah, their babies are staying, and they're discharged to go home. Then only one person can come in at a time. So it's hard, really hard for families with sick newborn babies to not be able to come in. Yeah.
Overall, what's the feeling in the hospital right now? I mean, I know in the beginning it was probably somewhat chaotic, right? Are you guys starting to get, more on a routine? Is there starting to be a little bit more of a positive outlook? You can be honest with us.
So in the beginning, I was on inpatient floors, and things were changing, I'm not exaggerating, by the hour based on how many tests we had, who could get a test, which patients we were allowed to even see. So now that things have kind of settled into more of a routine, it's gotten a little more easier to handle. And then also we've been keeping track of how many coronavirus patients we're seeing and discharging. And it's always really exciting when you get to discharge a patient. And for a while, Bellevue was playing some Journey music over the loudspeakers when they got transferred either out of the ICU or discharged.
That's cool.
That's nice. I would say in terms of our pediatric will become a little bit more positive in the past couple of weeks, just because a lot of the pediatric nurses had to turn into full on COVID floors, and those are the first floors that they tried to start discharging and moving patients around. So we're sort of getting back to our regular flow.
Right.
But it's so hard because you don't know what's going to happen and if this can last or not. But I would say in the past week, it's gotten a little more positive, from my perspective.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
Our final question is about, what's it like to walk through the streets of New York and have people cheering out their windows and just, giving you guys standing ovations? What's that like? How does that make you guys feel? Has it been helpful to you? Because I'm sure it's a really stressful time for both of you.
Yeah, I would say it's so helpful. Most of my coworkers, we've gotten so much closer because boyfriends, roommates, like everyone has sort of cleared out of the city unless you have to stay or you're a healthcare worker. And I'm like not a sentimental person, but walking outside and like seeing all the firefighters and people cheering and a whole parade is really, really cool. I was telling my parents, my mom was like, "Oh, is there food out?" I'm like, "No, there's not food. There's not." But it's really awesome. It makes you feel like you're doing good and that like New York is like coming together.
Yeah.
And the fact that it happens every night, I'm like, oh my God, again.
Yeah.
It's awesome. It's really cool.
I agree. Sometimes it can be really distressing because there are like rules about where in the hospital we can be, and you have to be wearing certain things in certain places. So sometimes throughout the day it can feel really isolating, and then like I can look out the window and I hear all the cheering and I see the sirens. And I've even had people like come up to me on the street if I'm walking home in scrubs and just say thank you, which is really, heartwarming.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, thank you both so much for taking time out of your Saturday afternoon to join us, and for everything that you're doing for us, for New York City, for everybody that you are helping. It's really, you guys are making a difference, and really the frontline people that are helping to get everybody through this.
Yes, thank you guys.
Great. Thank you.
It was really great to talk to them and get firsthand experience from two really young alums that we both know. They are the heroes. They are the ones that we are cheering for and hoping stay safe in this pandemic.
Absolutely. It's one thing to see this on the news. It's one thing to, watch the Today Show and see all the first responders. It's a different experience to speak to two of them. And it's really empowering to see two bright young women really being heroes during this pandemic.
They really embody the true, the beautiful, and the good right now.
Absolutely. Thank you everyone for joining us for this special edition of STEM Connects Virtually. Please make sure to stay tuned during the credits because we have some great videos that both Molly and Kelsey sent to us, really demonstrating how New York City has come together to support the first responders.
Stay home and stay safe.